the product is not good enough, or if people are not meant to rebuy, no email will help them. People don't even focus on the metrics they should be taking a look on because they're fooled by the tools they're using. What companies that do still grow and they get bigger is they do work on their product, they do listen more to customers, and they work on having USPs. When I start segmenting, do not like segment in hundreds different pieces, maybe start by who are my prospects, haven't purchased ever from me? Who are my active customers who have maybe bought in like the last couple of weeks? And then who are the people that have churned from me? And then maybe start working with these 3 or maybe 4 segments. If I have subscription in, maybe tie them into a different segment.
Welcome, Thomas. Super excited to have you today. I think it's very exciting because you, on the one hand, you have a lot of insights in e-commerce. On the other hand, also as an entrepreneur, as you also started your business at a really young age, almost 5 years ago, if I remember correctly. But yeah, very happy to have you, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm Thomas. It was 4 years ago. I had the luck. I started on the 1st of January in 2020. So in terms of bookkeeping, it was quite good dates. I didn't know back then, but yeah, it's 4 years now. We started as email only, and now do print and WhatsApp, so all kind of CRM channels.
Crazy, right? Yeah, I think you started as a freelancer, right? And then you grew your team and your clients, and what has now become Mailody, and it's, I would say, the #1 email marketing agency in the German market with crazy references. You have Gieswein, Jungglück, Lo25, Everdrop, a lot of very well-known brands, and a ton more. So you also have a lot of insights into different businesses. And I have to say, I appreciate you and Tizian very much. You're both really cool guys, very knowledgeable, hardworking, experienced, and always staying on the top of the latest trends.
We try to.
Cool. Before we start diving into some stories or some topics, I wanted to ask if you want to share a little bit more about your personal story, because I think it's super interesting. How did you get started in email marketing? You were super young. I think you didn't wake up one day and say, now I'm going to do email marketing. I guess there's something behind that, maybe.
Yeah. So I did finish high school for the luck of my parents, because otherwise I think it would be bad blood back home. But yeah, I did finish my high school, and in my finishing year, COVID started to appear, and we didn't go back to school, so mainly had remote schooling. And I started to first do some websites. I did niche websites. I did some Amazon ebooks and tried my best, and never had much luck there. It was like a couple of €100, which was quite nice for the age, but nothing where you could make a living from. And then I started doing some websites, and the first client approached me, hey, could you set up my MailChimp account? And that was kind of the first project there. So no big fancy story. It was like go from one thing to the next, and this has become Mailody by now, where I would say, we did work quite hard, but we also had the big luck of COVID expanding, and people were throwing budget out of the door, which was a good period to start off on. And then we grew from client to client, and we had the big luck that we chose Klaviyo as the tool we work with. Instead of having like 7 different tools, we decided to do one, and this one quite good. And also there could take the ride that Klaviyo grew from not even having a Do and a C in German to, I would say now, the leading tool that is used at least in SMB and small, slowly going into upmarket.
Great. So you were at the right place at the right time, maybe, but I think there's also a lot of skill behind that to run a positive and successful business. So congrats to that. It's interesting that you say, because I think a lot of young people started now in this COVID age, and a lot of things have changed. And also for e-commerce, there are a lot of brands that started during COVID, and they had very successful first 1 to 3 years. And now there's a different phase, or last 1 to 2 years, you could see funding went down, decreased, and a lot of brands struggled. How do you see state of e-commerce right now? What do you see happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you. And one thing I have with one specific client we had from the very beginning is we had a discussion 3 years ago where, there was so much funding in. having the discussion, should we even send out emails? You know, we could throw 10,000 euros more into paid social and it would do kind of the same thing. And the same client, the same person, the same role of the company now comes back 3 years later and is like a fan of, oh, should we do some marketing with our existing customers because it's cheaper and we don't have the funding anymore and we need to take care more here. And I would say big brands and also like companies with having some brand behind, having good product, having product market fit, they still grow, especially if it's like problem solving products. But then if I have the 50-2C startup that has the same product, sourced probably from the same factory in China with the same packaging, they do struggle at the moment and have a hard time. They're not growing, they're even trying to just survive. And we see, especially also with our clients, they care more about budgeting, and what 3 years ago wasn't even a discussion is now something that is discussed. So yeah, times definitely get harder and more tough. So I would say biggest challenges is there is so many D2C companies where it's just a marketing team and they have the same product and the same everything that everyone else has. And it's so hard for them to have established USPs. And I think what companies that do still grow and they get bigger is they do work on their product, they do listen more to customers, and they work on having USPs. You know, they don't have the same exact product as someone else.
Yeah, that's for sure. I recently had a chat with Johannes from Chat. I mean, he also mentioned there's, on the one hand, you need product market fit, but also you need message market fit. So, right, so you can have the same product, but one company, one brand maybe manages to speak about the right problems, desires that customers have, another brand does not. And also that influences heavily what customers you acquire in the end and how much those customers stick around. The higher the motivation and the desire is for customers to use the product, the more they will use the product and the better the retention is. So I guess one topic for all of us is that you can never fix a business, right? A broken business, you can only help. I love the quote, you can help winners win more, but there needs to be a strong foundation.
This is something we have so many times, especially with the client size we deal with. There's people coming and say like, you know, we can do campaign in-house, like campaign management, we can do in-housing, but we need you to fix our retention. And this is always a very hard a hard discussion to have. This, if the product is not good enough or if people are not meant to rebuy, no email will help them to rebuy. Or if I have a food product and they will buy, I don't know, 5 flavors, but they like one and they dislike 4 of them, most likely no email in the world will help them to buy again from the company if they dislike the flavors. Like no email will look so nice or so good or will pain point them so good that they will rebuy. It's more like the product is already established. Usually these brands work without the channels that we all work on, and they just work better if people work on the specific problems there. But no product will be fixed with like good messaging, good emails, good WhatsApps, good print campaigns.
Exactly. So you can only amplify what they have, which is a good transition. I think on your website you say we do email, and I think you do email really well. But I would actually challenge that, because at least from what I know, how I know you and what you do with customers is you go beyond that, right? Because you actually help them, you not just execute the emails, but you actually have, with all the knowledge that you have in your experience, you actually go further and help them also how they can fix the basics. And it's not just the execution of email.
Yeah, I think usually the agency website is the client that is treated in the worst way, and there's probably some things we should update next to like the email, that we do more different channels. But yeah, we also work together with our clients. This is not something we can do on our side to like how do people use the product, in which packaging, how many how much should be in the packaging, how do we explain them how to best use the product. Because what I see in most CRM and email setups is either there is no communication the first 2 weeks, or there is just free upsells on trying to sell people more. But I think the most important phase is from the time people purchase to the time the product is delivered to their doorstep, to the time they unwrap it. How do they use it at the beginning? Because especially with food and with supplement, if the product is good. If we speak from porridge, the product is good, but people just don't prepare it in a certain way, and then it doesn't taste good to them. They will most likely not try it again and again and again. So it's very important to think about the first 2 or 3 weeks on how the product is used and how we approach clients there, so that the more usually they use it, the better they like it, the more likely they will be to purchase by themselves, and not the first or the second upsell email in the first week.
Yeah, it's important. I remember we also learned that at Waterdrop, that it's important to get customers to use the product first before they will actually repurchase. So if they don't use the product, you can do the best marketing you want after that, the best communication. They need to actually use the product to like the product. Yeah, that's a really important point.
Yeah, especially with products that are consumable, and these work probably best in retention. No one will rebuy a backpack when they have just purchased. But if I have consumable products, it's very important to explain them how do I use the product in the right way. Or if you have new products, for example, when I would assume Waterdrop was new, or if you take Everdrop into account, people don't know the product, so we need to explain them. How much water do they fill in the glass in order that it tastes good? Because if it's too little or too much, probably doesn't taste good, and they will not continue using the product.
Yeah, I remember we had this conversation where we spoke about the retention point strategy. So it's also interesting that during acquisition, when acquiring a customer, we focus so much about what are the desires, what are the problems they want to solve, the desires of what they want to achieve with the product. And many brands that don't know better, they just, once the customer is acquired, they start communicating, these are our values, this is what we stand for, and they completely forgot about the customer, and as you just mentioned, to get them actually to use and get them hooked on the product. That's a very important way.
Usually it's easier, or the easiest way is just take the small messaging in the 10-second video ad and then prepare it in a longer email chain, and people will start reading, and they don't really care about like the values and who is working in the company and who is standing behind and how the production line looks like. They mostly they have this kind of desired outcome they would like to have. Like, no one buys the t-shirt, they will buy a look, or ideally a compliment from maybe their partner or from their friends. And this is what gets them to buy in the first place, and this should be what gets them to buy again and again. And so just taking things that work very well in acquisition and then push them back and have probably more attention from the customers, because it's very hard in like their Instagram feed to get the attention you would like to have. But when you have won them over, usually they do read the first couple of emails, especially if your emails are between order confirmation and shipping confirmation. Most likely they will at least open them. Yeah. And you have probably more attention spent there to get them even more excited and give them more explanation regarding the product and the effects they will take from it.
Yeah, maybe we can clean out some misconceptions, because I think what you just mentioned, right? Brands come to you and say, hey, we can do all this execution in-house, just fix our retention. But I think when you ask even CMOs and marketers, like, how do you fix retention? There's like probably no real answer. Like, many people think, I don't know, right? So they struggle, they want to fix retention, they don't know how. And then sometimes I feel that people just start working on something which might not even have the biggest impact. You first mentioned that the emails, the communication right after the purchase is way more important than maybe a win-back campaign, because even though you have a lot of customers that haven't purchased for a long time, probably they are dead, right? They will not open an email, so it's way more important to get it right here. So what are some of the measures that you see brands work on that they shouldn't or they don't have to work on, and what is really important?
So I would say there is 3 things people tell us when they come to us. The first thing is, we need to segment more. And then they have maybe a list of like 10,000 people, and they try to segment everyone because personalization is such a like buzzword that people have. Second piece usually is, we need to A/B test everything. And I think that the big misconception here is the way email tools are set up is, I have the belief that if I send an email, the email gets delivered because it says 99% delivered. They tell me, if you don't have welcome flow, you lose 20,000 in revenue per month. Usually you would lose that. And then they create benchmarks, and they will tell you, your competitor brands, they have this much open rate and they have this much click rate, and you should start A/B testing to increase here and there. And then they have this automatic A/B testing features where they will tell you once it's significant. So that's kind of the second piece. We need to test everything, and then people start testing with, I don't know, 20 abundant cards per day to time delay test 30 minutes against 20 minutes. So that's kind of the second piece usually. And then the third piece is they don't even have email properly set up, and then they start with WhatsApp, and they start with print, and then they build their own app because it's just the things people are doing. I think these are like the three main things people try to focus on. And then they just naturally, like, they think in terms of email revenue, but they don't think in terms of how many people do rebuy, when do they rebuy, how much do they rebuy, which products do they rebuy. Like, they don't even really look at these numbers because, and I think that's the big problem, email tools don't care about these numbers. Like, the only thing, if you log into a Klaviyo or if you log into an Ecommerce or an Omnisend, this is how much revenue you do, this is how much email revenue it is, and then usually 80% is a welcome flow anyway. So these are, like, I think mainly triggered by email tools, and they will push you to the metrics they like you to focus on, because of course if you plug on an email tool and you start sending emails, of course there's attributed revenue because people will start opening, and then they will eventually buy in the next couple of days because they're already existing customers. So I think these are like a couple of problems where people don't even focus on the metrics they should be taking a look on because they're fooled by the tools they're using.
So the email tools want to attribute more revenue, so the email tools look great. And email marketers also want to do that, same as acquisition marketers want to inflate basically the ROAS in the ads manager. What is that then that you say makes sense to look at? So these are the metrics not to look at?
Right. So I think one of the big things we have at the moment is people send emails, but they have no idea if they even deliver. And then we have like the sender requirement update from the beginning of February. And then people can't even pronounce the word DMARC, and they have no idea what a sending domain is because they just think it's enough to just create an account and start sending emails. So I think first thing is, before I start sending emails, before I heavily invest into content and copywriting and sending out mails, I should think about, do I even deliver? Because it doesn't make sense to send to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people and then maybe don't reach certain providers. So I think this is one of the first pieces where usually the people running emails, they're mainly content focused. And once it gets technical, they're like, no, that's not our business to take care of. So I think this is the first thing I would think about. And then the second thing is, if I generate new customers, how many people do rebuy and how much do they rebuy and which products do they usually rebuy? And then start working on these journeys instead of having a post-purchase journey and everyone who purchases from brand XYZ will get a win-back campaign after 90 days of not purchasing, and then they will get up and cross-sells the first couple of days. Think about maybe in the beginning, what are the 3 main offers I have in acquisition, and build tied down journeys for these specific products. And if I have hundreds of products, most likely I will have 3 or 5 or 10 that are the big winners in acquisition. Yeah. Take these out and then really think about them before going into the email tool. How do they work? If I have maybe a tester bundle with 5 flavors, how does it work? People buy in the beginning, how should I structure it? Should I ask them which products they like? Should I understand how long does it usually take for me to have it at the doorstep? How many days does it take for me to understand which flavors they like? When should I approach my upsell? How much should I maybe discount them? Because does it make sense to discount on the second purchase more? Because then people will stay on longer in the long run. Think more about the product and what people will do after. These are maybe the 2 things people should think about before introducing WhatsApp, before introducing print campaigns, and before starting to segment their database in, 100 small segments.
Great. So basically, do less, do it with better focus, do the right things. It's also interesting that you mentioned funnels, because I think we also know brands that do between, 50 to 100 million a year, and that basically have one hero product and one core funnel. And when I once asked them, like, why don't you have other products, why don't you build other funnels? They said, like, every time and focus that I invest into building another funnel is time that I lose optimizing my main funnel. And I rather have a really, really strong performance on one funnel than building multiple funnels. So I think that also ties into what you said with segmentation. It's much, much harder to suddenly have hyper segmentation and maintain and track and optimize everything instead of really focusing on one core funnel.
Right. And then if you start segmenting, usually people will, for every campaign they do, they will segment more differently. They will launch advanced calendars, and then they will segment who has purchased advanced calendar before, who hasn't, who is new to the database. And then next time, if they, I don't know, launch a new product line, they will think about who has purchased this in the past, and they will never have comparable segments. When I start segmenting, do not like segment in hundreds different pieces. Maybe start by who are my prospects haven't purchased ever from me? Who are my active customers who have maybe bought in like the last couple of weeks? And then who are the people that have churned from me? And then maybe start working with these 3 or maybe 4 segments. If I have subscription in, maybe tie them into a different segment, but then you can suddenly test messaging, because you can test with all your prospects what does work in terms of messaging, and you don't have different segments all the time. And then you can also be more aggressive with people who are inactive and send maybe more frequency compared to the active customers that maybe will purchase by themselves anyways. And then have comparable segments rather than hundreds of slices, and every time it's different on who you will send, and you build out campaigns fully new.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You mentioned subscriptions. What is your experience? I think Germany is different than the rest of the world. It's not so open to subscriptions still. Do you have any cases where you see subscriptions work? Yeah.
So I think we have accepted that Netflix and Amazon Prime is a subscription. I think the German people are fine with it and start purchasing these kind of things in subscription. But then when it comes to e-commerce products, from what I see is so many of our clients start doing subscription models, and usually I would say 80 or 90% of the times they fail. Either no one purchases it, or people will, it's kind of a bundle, people will buy and churn afterwards. So I think it's very hard to have a successful and running subscription business. And usually if you do have it, as we were speaking earlier, you don't have 5 funnels and then 5 products in subscriptions. You usually then have main focus on subscriptions. So for example, we have It Patete, a client of ours. Their whole business model is based on, we have subscription boxes, and this is the way the whole company operates. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, they started introducing one-time products, like next to the vegetable and fruit boxes they are selling to, they have suddenly olive oil, and they had some cooking gear. And for example, these products didn't really work. So what they did again is then only focus on their subscription. But usually if you take a non-subscription product and just try to sell subscription to have better valuation, it usually fails. And if you have subscription, it also takes so much time and effort to focus on these kind of things. What do customers want? When do they usually churn? You need a way different data structure usually in order to understand when do people churn, what are the churn causes in order to work better on the product. And then usually acquisition is harder. You're not profitable. It's way more it's way more expensive in order to do acquisition there, and more capital heavy in terms of scaling it. So usually in DACH market, if you don't have a product that is very used to subscription, and we will accept it here, it's hard to get it up and running.
Yeah, it's a very good point. You need to focus on subscription and basically run a subscription first business. We've also seen it at Waterdrop when we wanted to test subscription, and we've had a lot of drops and campaigns and offers, and then people say, why should I go on subscription? I have loyalty points, I can use those. There is a discount, there's something happening every few months. So it's very hard to introduce a subscription later on. I think it requires a mindset shift.
Right. And I also think people, like the end customer usually gets confused, because people will start with subscription, and then they start with referral tool, and then there is loyalty tool, and then there is a special early ambassador club and whatsoever. And then people do get confused there, and people, as you were saying, they will stop their subscription because they will get a better discount, and then they start purchasing the product somewhere else, but then they don't renew the subscription. So if you have subscription, you should focus on it, and you should also be aware of the pricing there and understand that people, if you do promotion and if you have a second kind of revenue stream, you will kill also your subscription if you're not careful. Because even if you separate them email-wise, they will have an understanding, because sometimes they do have different email addresses, or they will see it somewhere in social media. So even if you segment them based on email, they will get an understanding that there is better promotions out of the subscription.
Yeah. So this leads us to loyalty program, and there's a lot of different ways, right? You can have loyalty programs with points, you can have memberships, you can have subscriptions. Is this something that you mentioned competes with each other? And when is also the right time for brands to implement loyalty programs? I also see often brands they just started out and say, hey, we need a loyalty program.
Mm-hmm. So we see the same thing. So people just randomly start loyalty programs. They think about what tiers should we do, and then they usually eat up their margin because people either refer themselves because you don't have it set up properly, or they will, you will have so many people in like different tiers. So I think the first thing is you need to be an established company, and you need to understand how people purchase and how their lifetime value develops over time, and be very careful on how you introduce your tiering, that you maybe have the top 10% in your best tier and then go based on these ones. And also what we see here with our clients is the biggest problem is if I just introduce a loyalty program because I want to boost retention, I have a cool tool and then I introduce tiers and then I just let it run by themselves. Usually I will just give out discount codes. And what I would rather do and think about is, could we have an exciting loyalty program? So for example, we do have a client at the moment who thinks about not only the discounting side of, but what could I offer my customers? Mm-hmm. Is there maybe some kind of magazine I could share with them that I could even list on my website, that maybe it's paid for a couple of euros, but they would get it quarterly, for example, for free? Or could I introduce some kind of community where people will interact with each other, and I have kind of my own ambassadors who sell to each other? Or do they want to have some maybe courses or extra content where they would even be more close to the brand? So I would think about, is there real benefits that maybe my customer base wants, and send out a survey beforehand and understand what are the things they would like to have, and could I get them even more excited about it? Or also one thing I came across, we haven't tested it with one of our clients, but for example, I saw in the pet industry a discounter online who has a loyalty program you even pay for. So you pay, I think, 10 euros per quarter or something like this. In order to have a small buy-in, people will get more discounting there, and they would think twice if they would buy somewhere else. So they would always come back to this specific retailer. So think more in terms of not only tiers and pricing, more to, is there actual benefits that benefit my target group, and where I could gather more market share.
Yeah, these memberships programs are interesting. It's basically the Costco model, right? Where Costco also started doing this and say, hey, it's also Amazon Prime, right? You want to think, I pay a membership fee, so now it should be worth it, so I will rather order more often. It's an interesting thought process. Regarding the tiers and everything, I think what we also found in community is that customers, once they're connected, either you create your community where you can basically manage the narrative and what's happening there and steer the communication, but it will also happen if you're a strong brand that customers do that themselves and maybe create also groups and ways to communicate outside of that. So having this tiered approach in loyalty is quite difficult because at least in my experience, also customers said, hey, why do you get better prices than me? So, just because you spend more, are you worth more for the company? So that can also be very tricky. But otherwise, it's very powerful tool as well to create these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if people create their own communities, usually they speak more about it. And we have one client in the fashion industry before where people were like sharing screenshots. Why do you get this A/B test and I get this A/B test and you have all your access than me? So be careful if you don't manage your own community there. But yeah, if apart from that, if you usually manage your own community, you have at least you can manage them usually and argument these kind of things, because in my opinion it's something I can argument if someone has purchased more times before and they are in a bigger tier and it's communicated openly. I would be fine of having people with different discounting structures.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be transparent and you need to have it a clear communication, I guess, for customers to accept it there. The communities are actually very interesting, as you mentioned, because the customers can sell to each other. I've seen it also that if you get your most loyal customers into a community and then you get new customers who also join the community, And then whenever they have a question, they are answered by other customers automatically, and they feel rewarded, right? Everyone wants to say something and have recognition. And it's, of course, much more powerful than if you try to sell your own products. So this can be a really strong retention boost.
Especially if you have delayed gratification, meaning I take the supplement for 2 months and I don't see anything happening. And then after 2 months, I see effects. It helps if, I don't know, Mary joins new into the group, but then there is 3 people already in sharing their results there. It would motivate the new person joining usually, and it would help getting over this initial barrier of taking a supplement every day and don't see a result. Same thing with losing weight or having like weight loss products, having this motivation for products I have to use for a longer time in order to see effects there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Also had a interesting statement that when you have these brands or when you have this product that takes a little bit of time, right, 3 months or longer, then it's also a good idea to sell that either as a subscription or as a bundle to customers, so the expectation is set right. Of course, the acquisition team can try to promise too much that your whole life will change in 2 weeks, but that hurts, of course, retention and ultimately the business if you overpromise and instead of setting the expectations right.
Right. Yeah, I would say the same, and especially having some kind of guide with it, like having the expectation for the customer as well. I do get the product, but then I get some kind of information around it, and usually the more they consume the information, whether it's written or it's in video form, usually the better they use the product, and then the more likely they are to repurchase again. So if I can take the promise at the beginning and then stretch it out over a longer email chain, usually I have more success for them to understand how they use the product, how long they have to use it, or maybe add some kind of things. For example, have some kind of routine checker where they would maybe like cross out the days they're using it, or maybe if WhatsApp or push notifications get bigger and bigger over time, having some kind of daily reminder, use the product or whatever that I could set as a customer, like helping them as much as possible to get the thing into their routine and give them an understanding. The first week you don't see anything, but this and this is happening, and then in the second week you don't see much either, but this and this is happening, in order for them to stay on long.
Yeah. What you say is not what others hear, so often it takes more touch points, both in acquisition and retention, for customers to understand.
Yeah, I would say the same. And also, if I sell them a bundle and the bundle is, I don't know, 100 euros or 150 euros, that's still no commitment for them to use the product. Like we all are on too many topics at the same time, and we have so many things we deal with on a daily basis, especially also with like being on social media, having so many messages in, usually just buying something. It doesn't mean that people will use it up for the whole time or even start with it. I would assume the big problem in e-commerce, we don't see if people like use the product later on, but I think there's so many companies and so many people buying products and never even start to use it.
Agree. And it's a very good statement to say that the product doesn't compete maybe with other products, but it competes with, watching TV or spending time with family or doing some other leisure activity that might be more rewarding or have more instant gratification than starting to create a new habit.
And then I think also the first 2-3 times they use it, it should be in some kind of way, if possible, rewarding, that they stick on longer. I think that's also, I think the first gap is they start using it. The even harder gap is that they stay on with the product and they use it in a longer time frame.
What do you think about the unboxing experience? I guess always that if you open up a product, or if you actually train the customer already to be excited when the product will come, as you mentioned in the time between ordering and receiving the product, and then you have an amazing unboxing experience, something that is like, wow, I'm really looking forward to trying this out, then I guess this can help.
Yeah, I think so too. I think unboxing, but then also having some kind of, don't just unbox it and put it somewhere away, because I think this happens as well. People get excited, open packaging and like, oh, I will try it on later. Having some kind of intuitive explanation that people will, I don't know, either scan a QR code and see some explanation there, or have a small booklet where they will get some information, or maybe there is a small sample in, if it's, for example, food products, that they will just take out and try and have maybe a good experience there to like have the unboxing experience exciting, but then also having some kind of mechanism that they will start using as soon as possible. Because the best thing that could happen is if people get excited, they will open the package. They have, I don't know, 5 flavors of porridge in, and they're super excited about the chocolate flavor, and they will right away start using it, rather than just opening, putting it somewhere, and then starting later on, or maybe don't even ever start using the product.
Just quickly, maybe you can share some case studies, or not case studies, but maybe some cases of WhatsApp prints, just to understand maybe what is possible with these channels, when do these channels make sense, and how can you implement them?
Yeah, maybe we start with when do they make sense. So I think they do make sense if I have email nailed, because it's the cheapest channel I can use and have. So it doesn't make sense to start with more expensive channels if I haven't nailed the free ones or the cheaper ones. And then for me, there is, on one hand side, there is print campaigns. Usually print work well if I have a little bit higher AOVs, because if I have 30 euros in AOV and then I spend 50 cents for a postcard, it's quite hard to get it profitable. But the print usually makes sense if I have a larger list I can send to. So of course I can say I send a win-back email, and then I wait 10 days and I send a second win-back email, and then I send, for example, a print campaign after. But then if I only have a couple of print campaigns per week or per month, it's quite expensive to send them. So usually it makes more sense to take a look at, I have a big database of maybe 100,000 people, and then there is maybe 30,000 unsubscribed from email. And then out of these 30,000, there is 5,000 that have a high CLV. They haven't purchased the last couple of months. And then for these specifically, I do a print campaign. So I only use money for people I can't reach via email, and then send out the print campaign. And usually, and this is something we have observed as well, don't do the print campaign in summer to fix your revenue problems there. Do it when it's already going good, and start doing print there. So that's kind of when does print make sense. And then the second piece with WhatsApp, again, it does make sense if I have a higher AOV, because I pay per message, usually like 9 to 11 cents when I do marketing messages. And they also have an understanding of, am I profitable? And in my opinion, email always makes sense at a certain point in an e-commerce lifetime. But then WhatsApp and print is more like a performance channel to me. I need to be very careful on what I'm spending and what do I make. And I don't want to have return on invest of free when I'm already marketing to existing customers. So same thing with WhatsApp. I pay per message. I don't have the volume problem. But then I would approach WhatsApp in two matters. It always makes sense in my opinion. The first piece is if I have people that don't open my email, then I send, for example, a WhatsApp message after I do a product launch at 10 a.m. and then maybe at 6 p.m. I send after a WhatsApp message where I have both email and the telephone number, to also be very efficient in terms of budgeting. And then the second piece is, can I use the ease of opt-in from WhatsApp to gather people that I don't gather in my email list? Meaning maybe I have smaller influencers I use, and the normal way is I have the story, people click on the story, they go onto the landing page, and either they will buy or they don't buy. If I put an email opt-in between, I will lose probably everyone. Like, you have to opt in first to go out to the landing page and then purchase, because people will wait for the email doesn't get delivered. Then they click on it, they have to type the email in first, maybe they have a spelling, like super long way of getting towards the landing page. But if I put WhatsApp in between, I have click, I am in WhatsApp, I need a second click to send the first message. I get my discount code there, I have very little friction, I can just test it, how many people do I lose over this process. But then I will get everyone who wants to have the discount code, no matter if they will check out later or not. And then I could maybe retarget them a week later. And then I'm building WhatsApp list where I can't reach via email, compared to I will just gather in all the telephone numbers I have and then just sending out WhatsApp. And usually I eat up revenue from email, put it towards WhatsApp, and I just pay, 10 times the price of
more
of what I could do with email.
So have you tested that you basically have influencer, that you have an influencer and you send them to a landing page, or you have a WhatsApp opt-in in between?
Yes, so we have it, for example, with Tails and Tails, pet food company, and they have small. Usually, if you have big influencers, it's hard because you have buyout programs, and they don't want to have you capture their database. But if you have smaller influencers like Tails and Tails is doing, it works quite good. And what you can do, the second phase is you can not send the WhatsApp from Tails and Tails, but you could send a small maybe UGC video of the influencer taking the phone and showing some products with a reminder later on. Or if the people are having a very, very good community, you could even send a voice message when they like recognize the voice of the influencer. You can send a voice message later on to remarket there. With Tails and Tails, it's basically no loss in terms of conversion rate, but then you would gather in more database and have people in the WhatsApp list. And then if you take it one step further, and this hasn't been tested, but we also have like companies selling, like having kind of the Amazon way of doing things, meaning I have different brands on my website and I sell for them. And if they market towards my e-commerce store, I can also capture the leads in between. So for example, I have their product selling in my store, they market it maybe on their socials, having their WhatsApp link in between, I would capture database from someone else, sending traffic to my store, and I have it with me as well. So whenever it's possible to capture database somewhere where people are fine with it, and usually that's like smaller influencers, smaller merchants, it's very, very wise to just try it out and see how much you can capture there.
Yeah, that's a great case how email marketing, or WhatsApp in that case, can actually support acquisition instead of trying to get the big step done that someone purchases immediately, capture the data and nurture. That's a really cool case. Haven't seen that actually in real life.
Well, hopefully you will see a couple of more examples soon. But I think WhatsApp is just a channel that is
try out.
I think WhatsApp is just a channel that is more starting out. I think in the beginning people just imported the whole database, sent out. It was not profitable for them, and now people will look for more smarter solutions there and see how these things develop. Because what I have seen with also clients of ours is WhatsApp gets expensive super quick because you pay usually more than for your email tool for the provider, and then you pay the variable fee in terms of the WhatsApp cost. So it does make sense to just target people where you can't target on some other channel cheaper. And see how
and Europe is not very and Europe is not very receptive to SMS, so you have to use WhatsApp in that case.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think we have accepted SMS for logging into our bank account, but not for e-commerce and for shopping purpose. So you have to go via WhatsApp, but then you also have the next thing that costs money, which is support. It's way easier if I get a WhatsApp from a company to just type something quickly back. Like, oh, how do I blah, blah, blah. And these are things that would never exist with an email ticket, because I would not go to the website and then start writing a long support ticket, because just email is the way we communicate in a long or a more in-depth way. But if I get a WhatsApp, it's super quick to just answer there. So it's even a topic for customer care. And then if I'm spending more than with email and I get more tickets than via email, and sometimes these tickets are good because people maybe check out and buy more, but most of the time people will just have a couple of random questions and it has no impact in terms of performance.
Yeah, it's a super important topic and super interesting topic, the whole customer support. I think a lot of people see it as a problem. And Johannes from Chadamin also said, like, customer support is actually one of the best things that can happen to a company. A ticket is basically a gift, not a burden. And if you see it that way, then you can really, implement it the right way. You can iterate product, you can improve your experience, you can improve everything. You can also improve your acquisition messaging, because you find out what people are, what keeps people from buying, and what are their questions and on objections.
Yeah, I would agree I think it depends sometimes on WhatsApp. From at least what the tickets I would have seen, it's just some questions where I would think like, okay, maybe this could just be answered super quickly. But I would agree. I think on one hand side, I would better understand the database. But then on the other hand side, for example, if I have cosmetics products, I think something Junglook tested a couple of years back is, if I interact with customer care, I'm way more likely to not only buy their soap, but I would buy the whole like set of products that are combined together, because I get a better understanding. And rather than just purchasing for 30 or 40 euros, I would take the whole set for maybe 100 and something euros. And most likely when I repurchase, I will take the whole set again if I'm, if the product quality is good and I have my expected results. So I would assume there as well, if I have a product where there is information needed and that is support heavy already, WhatsApp could be a good channel to help people find the products they need and then also increase their basket size there.
100%. A personal touch always helps to build connection. And we've also tried that at Waterdrop before. WhatsApp was really a thing to send basically personalized videos for loyal customers or something. And now with WhatsApp, there's definitely a much more direct channel and more direct way to do that.
Yeah, we will see if it goes more the WhatsApp route, or if people start developing apps, or from at least what I understood, it should be possible to also send push notifications without your own app. And I think this could also be a nice channel, because it's way cheaper. Instead of paying 11 cents, I could start and send push notifications out, be on the first screen. I would prefer from a brand receiving a push notifications compared to having between, I don't know, my best friend and my mom having a company sending me promotions all the time and appearing in my WhatsApp inbox. I could assume next to WhatsApp push could be a good channel, where it's also fine to not always do a sell, because if I pay 11 or 9 cents, I need to drive conversions, otherwise it gets expensive. But if I could do it for free, I could, in your Waterdrop case, I could send them, hey, did you think about hydration today? You should drink, 2 liters per day. Take a moment and start drinking some water. Or if I have some kind of weight loss product, I could ping them every day and remind them of the routine. Or in the cause of Glow 25, I could remind them every morning, did you take your Glow coffee today? And I could have more interaction, where I would say it's more valuable for the customer as well, and not having promotion all the time.
Yeah, I also know my mom was in WhatsApp groups where you basically have 30 days challenges or something, and you just support each other and have the feeling there's someone listening to you and acknowledging what you did. So it's definitely also helps. And I think if you leverage customer support or the WhatsApp, on the other hand, on the brand side, you get the commitment from the customers, right? So you help a customer solve a problem, and then you send them a direct checkout link, and then you can tell them, hey, let me know when if it worked out. They feel also this commitment to go through with this, because there is someone on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is something, if we would think about weight loss products, like there are so many out there and there are so many people trying them, and I would assume 90, I don't know the statistics, but 90% of fail with the weight loss product. And if I would just have this small mechanism where I would check in with people, maybe have a personal trainer, and I could schedule 10-minute check-ins. And if I would help them over a period of a couple of weeks without having going back, like dropping weight and going back quickly, I would assume you would have a customer for life, and he will buy whatever you will launch that would help him stay on the weight. So if you could help these first, 30 to 60 days and actually receive the result in these competitive places like weight loss or quitting smoking or whatever you would have, I think if you go over this place, you would have like the client for forever, and they will never switch the company, because they have tried 5 products before and never really succeeded there.
Yeah, that's a good point. It goes back to what we discussed in the beginning, that having a great product and basically helping customers achieve the desired outcome and solve a problem is the best retention metric that you can have. Now we talked a lot about email marketing, WhatsApp, push notifications, loyalty programs, subscriptions. Anything that I missed on the retention side that you wanted to add?
I think we covered the most important points. I think it's not about having the next technical hack and this specific flow that we could target somewhere. It's more about, as we were speaking, the product, and then also I would say the messaging, and messaging would convert into how do I treat my customer in order to use the product in the right way, and how people are doing it. What we could add into the set of topics we have spoken is kind of taking feedback into account and having, as you're talking in many LinkedIn posts or in many discussions, firstly post-purchase survey, but then also checking in later on, like how do people feel in the time they purchase and how do they feel a couple of weeks down the line? Because how they feel when they purchase is how is the messaging, how excited are they, how is the website, how is the value proposition, but do we even hold up to it? Like if I buy the, I don't know, skincare product, after 4 weeks, I do know how I feel about the product and checking in again and monitoring these kind of things. Because a lot of brands, in my opinion, they set up these surveys, they have a post-purchase survey, they have some kind of service, but then sometimes you click and the link doesn't even open anymore because they changed some Typeform URL and then you're sure they haven't looked into the results for a very long time. So setting up a survey, but then recurringly taking a look, it only helps if you recurringly take a look and work based on these feedback points and get an understanding there.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought. Not just track the data. First of all, also look at the data, right? A lot of people want to do a lot of A/B testing or segmentation, but the end is like, what do you get out of this? Regarding this is an interesting thought. I always like to track first directly after the purchase, as you mentioned. Then once the customers receive the products, and then, as you mentioned, like 2 weeks, 4 weeks after they used the products, because then you have 3 different metrics and you can understand, is it a problem or is maybe the purchase is going well, but okay, I have a shipment problem because apparently the rate, the NPS score or whatever goes down at this stage. And then later on, maybe the product is not great. So everything is amazing, I'm selling it well, but then the product doesn't keep the promise. That's a very interesting thought, yeah.
And then also thinking it one step further and maybe pushing in the email address and the first name and the last name and maybe even the postal code and then maybe the AOV or lifetime value. And then you suddenly have the list with all of their feedback, but maybe some kind of postal code that you deliver to Austria, it doesn't work properly because, I don't know, at the border things get delivered or handled wrong, or it takes way longer than you expect. Or you could, even when you were speaking about the personalized videos you guys did at Water before, we could also think about, do we have people with very high CLV that have very bad NPS score? Apparently, the 5 orders they did before, they were happy. Maybe this time, I don't know, the postman dropped the product and it broke, or it's something you should be cooling, but it was summer and it gets delivered in a bad way. Maybe take this top 5% of people and push them into customer care and personally reach out to them if you have some kind of capacity. Like invest into the couple of best customers, because I would assume if I had, I don't know, 8 orders and I was fine, and then I have one really bad order where I get the wrong product, but then it gets delivered in a bad way or whatever. If I would just reach out to these ones, it's a good investment into their future lifetime value, because probably they will keep on spending more and more, to also have this kind of component in your survey.
Yeah, and you can do even automation so that you're not stuck with looking at the metrics every day. Every week you can also say, hey, if there's, as you just said, it's a great example, someone who purchased 3 times, 5 times, 8 times, leaves a bad review, leaves a bad NPS score, get a push notification directly to customer support, and they can do that on the same day, get something in a Slack channel, a notification or anything up and running. A lot of insights, a lot of great cases. I think it's always great to visualize what can be done, how can you implement that. Thank you so much, Thomas. I also remember we had once a discussion where we anonymously shared charts from brands without saying what brands they were, just basically how brands develop. And then we said, okay, we can see the returning revenue from this brand stopped, stagnated, so probably they diversified the product portfolio too much. And I guess they just started hiring too many people. And then you were laughing and I were laughing because we kind of understood each other very well. What are the challenges? So the challenges are always the same, no matter. You don't even need to know what products they're selling or what brands these are. You understand immediately from show me the chart and I'll tell you the state of the business, kind of. That was fun.
I remember when you were saying, here they hired and here they fired people. And I was like, whoa, you just see the chart of like revenue developing and you don't know the company name and the product line, and you even knew how things develop. But yeah, I would agree. Usually you can see it from there. And most likely even these companies make 10, 20, 30 million a year. They haven't spent maybe even 10 minutes looking at these kind of charts at sometimes. So yeah, great wrap up.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for your time. It was a very interesting discussion, and thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.